Well damn, hasn't it just been a great couple of weeks for ARPG players? The main Diablo 4 boy Rod Ferguson ended up doing us all a favor and embarrassing Blizzard more than any release of a better ARPG could possibly embarrass them. Speaking of better games, PoE 2 Early Access started last Friday. It's exciting and pretty difficult. A full Early Access review to come later. But this video is about a new bit of ARPG news that for most people will completely fly under the radar. 11th Hour Games has just announced their intentions for the new Last Epoch Season 2. Season 2 is the next major patch that's going to include all sorts of content equivalent to 1.0 and 1.1. Originally it was called 1.2, but they've restructured their roadmap to better address the most pressing player feedback, so I guess a rename makes sense. This season is going to come out in 2025. When in 2025? April 2025. Keep that date in mind, I'm going to talk about the consequences of that in a little bit. But Season 2 is coming eventually, so what is included? Well, we don't know too much right now, but we have some cool words, some titles to speculate on, which EHG has given us short descriptions for each of them. If you'd like to read all of this off the original post, I'll put the link in the description, but for this video, I'm going to summarize. EHG is going to focus primarily on the endgame. Again, the Monolith system is going to get a major update. There will be new event types within the Echoes, with new rewards to match. There's a focus on the Weaver, one of the lore important gods you may recognize from the items with Weaver's Will. The Weaver will actually be a new faction that can augment your Monolith experience to your liking. EHG is introducing champion enemies, which are basically new combat encounters with more difficult mobs. On top of that, they're looking to add more bosses to the endgame, so we can have some variety while climbing the ladder to get to Aberoth, the current pinnacle boss. And lastly, the Sentinel is getting a rework, which will be nice. I like the updates they did to the Shaman, so hopefully this will be good for the Sentinel too. There's much more to Season 2 than what I mentioned: quality of life updates, bug fixes, stability improvements, and more. But of course, the most important piece of information we received in this post is the timeline. So now let's talk about the date. Rant incoming. I don't have quite the words other than just, damn. April 2025 is 9 months after the 1.1 update, which was the previous major content patch for Last Epoch. They've released smaller patches since then, but this is the time between the two major updates that EHG promised would bring large changes and large amounts of new content to the game. And look, I love Last Epoch. I've made a lot of Last Epoch content over the last couple of years, so maybe I have my biases. I give Last Epoch the benefit of the doubt more often than not. I constantly say how great it is in spite of its many flaws. I made a video earlier this year talking about how the game wasn't dead. It was just in a slow period while we waited for the next patch. But this time, I don't think I can really say anything positive about this, other than I hope that it comes out great, right? I hope the wait is worth it. And let me be clear, I don't think this is technically a bad move by EHG, nor do I think that they really had a choice. They probably didn't want to wait that long to put out a major patch, but there is obviously a lot of work that needs to be done. So I'm not angry or sad or anything, it is what it is. When the patch drops in April 2025, I will probably log in to play it and be excited to see the new content. But I am an avid Last Epoch enjoyer. I love this game. I put thousands of hours into it. I make my own builds and like to talk about its design. I am not the normal ARPG fan. The normal ARPG player is going to forget about Last Epoch until March, when all of the content creators start hyping up the Season 2 content drop. And while I personally don't care about Last Epoch's concurrent player count, I think a lot of people do. More importantly, I think it drastically lowers people's expectations of the quality and level of game that Last Epoch is. Earlier this year for the 1.0 launch, people thought it may be the answer to a common problem in the ARPG space. PoE is too hard, Diablo is too brain dead. Last Epoch was that middle ground, and content creators and I think a lot of ARPG players thought that Last Epoch could fill that void and we'd have the perfect trifecta of ARPGs to represent the genre. But if EHG is taking 9 months to deliver content, can it really hang with the big boys? Does it deserve to be talked about as one of the pillars of the genre? I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I love the game. I'm gonna keep coming back to play it at least 3 times a month to try out new builds and push for Aberoth again, but for the normal ARPG fans, Last Epoch will lose its place on that pedestal. No longer one of the big 3, just a great game that receives updates, so every once in a while you want to go back and enjoy it for a bit before you get hyped about the new content that PoE 2 is releasing instead. If players have to choose between Last Epoch and another ARPG, let's just say for argument's sake, Path of Exile 2, the most hyped ARPG launch since forever, I think players are going to choose Path of Exile 2, and for good reason. As much as I love Last Epoch, I know that content is going to be sitting there for a long time. There's no urgency to play it when it drops, so if it means choosing between Last Epoch Season 2 and Path of Exile seasonal content, I'm going to play Path of Exile, 1 or 2 at this point. It's really just that expectation. Players need to feel like there's a reason to spend their time engaged with Last Epoch, and if more and more players are feeling like it's not as important to spend their time, then the live service model will take another victim. Just as a side note, Last Epoch wasn't originally going to be a live service game. It was going to be a single-player full release with expansions as additional content, like Grim Dawn is today. But closer to the 1.0 launch, EHD decided to go with the live service route to implement continuous updates to the game and mold it to the vision they had, and introduce multiplayer. But I don't know if that works if it takes so long to get updates out. Where do they get the money for development? If there isn't a constant flow of content, will microtransactions and a trickle of game purchases be enough to sustain their work? The live service model is a high risk, high reward. What happens if they can't support it? Long story short, I just think that EHG is going to lose a lot of the momentum and popularity they had with the ARPG player base back when 250,000 people showed up for the 1.0 launch. It makes me a bit disappointed, I guess, just because I had hoped that Last Epoch would be able to keep up. I love the game, I want it to be one of the big three, but maybe we just need to be a little bit more patient before it becomes that. All of this being said, I do think that EHG should take the time needed to fix a lot of the server and technical issues that plague the game right now. I also think they need a large amount of content added to the endgame to keep things fresh, or the endgame will continue to be a problem. And if they need 9 months to do it, well, I guess I'll just be patient. There are so many games to play right now, it really is a good time to be an ARPG fan. And who knows, maybe Season 2 will be the best new content drop of 2025. Anyway, enough of my rant. I'm pretty passionate about Last Epoch. I feel like I'm in the top 1% of playtime with it. So I feel like maybe my thoughts on this are different than yours if you don't play LE as much. So I'd rather hear what you have to say. Let me know if this surprises you at all, or if this is something that you think kills the game entirely. Or let me know if you don't think it's a big deal, and players will come back to try it out no matter how long it takes. Most importantly, I hope you enjoy the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe for more ARPG content like this. I hope you're enjoying Path of Exile 2 right now, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.